Hello, and welcome to installment 1 of our podcast. Name right now, AAA for Adams and Amann, but still in works. I'm Rowan Amann.
I'm Anthony Adams.
And today we're just going to talk about our young training experiences. I guess we'll start with some introductions, more explaining ourselves, and then we'll just start chatting. So, like I said, I'm Rowan Amann. I'm a senior at Pacific Lutheran University. I've been playing baseball here for 4 years. I'm an infielder. I'm a pre-PT major, going hopefully into my last year, but we'll see. Might take a 5th year. And I've just been loving training guys for this last couple of months and, learning a lot.
I'm Anthony Adams, also a baseball player, Pacific Lutheran University, studying kinesiology, concentration in exercise science. Little resume, basically you could, in quotes, like director, head of interim strength and conditioning at PLU last year, and then now I'm a strength and conditioning student assistant. And then Rowan and I were both interns at Driveline Baseball. I was a high performance intern. Rowan was a physical therapy intern. Born and raised in Auburn and just living our lives here in Tacoma. I'm a senior this year, but we'll see if I need to take a 5th year next year. I might take it for baseball and just to get a couple more classes, get some more experience. Maybe just take a light load so I could work with athletes some more, rather than just maybe spending it on monotonous classes that I don't need.
I think, a big thing I want to focus on is that first part of your resume you said, in quotes, interim head coach at Pacific Lutheran University. You were tasked with a pretty big thing last year in training all our athletes while we were in between strength coaches. So I guess what were some of the big takeaways from that? What did you learn? How did your mind change during that time?
I think the biggest thing I look back at it now is just I took it way more seriously than I needed to, but in a good way. As in there was times where I would devote me treating it like an actual job rather than doing schoolwork, which a lot of people probably wouldn't say. So I would stay after my work hours and just go through attendance, go through workouts, kind of take a look at how everyone's doing, even though I wasn't necessarily programming the workouts. So I think my care for it, even though I was going above the job description, I think it kind of showed that I had a lot of appreciation for what I was doing and just the time I was spending with athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I had the privilege of being both one of your athletes and living with you, and I would agree with that. I think you took it really seriously, and I think everyone else benefited from that a lot. We were in desperate need of somebody who knew what they were talking about, and even if you didn't know what you were talking about, you worked really hard to figure out what you were talking about. And I think that's kind of a key there is you don't always know the answers to things, but if you're willing to apply yourself and learn the answer in between one session and another, you can help people go far.
Yeah, and I think a big thing that kind of student athletes were missing, and it was cool that I was a student athlete myself so that I get an understanding of what students need to see and hear. I think one of them is understanding the why of what they're doing, right? So if you have an idea of why you're doing something, you're more likely to do it. If you understand in math class why you're doing this math equation or the reason for it, it's you're more likely to do it and put forth more effort into it. So I would usually, there's times where I'd use the whiteboard, I'd take 5 minutes, shave 5 minutes at the beginning of the workout and just talk about the little things, why do we want to move fast? Why do we want to hit max numbers? Why do we want to sprint? Just little things like that. And even though, there's students who and athletes who didn't care. It was why is this dude standing in front of me drawing on a whiteboard? It was I knew I was hitting it home for the people who did care, which is how I saw myself in the audience, And there's people who come up and say hey, that was really cool. I've never heard of that, or that was cool that you explained it. And those are the people you do it for, And you're saying, sometimes, you just get, you get caught up in the job life. I know we've talked about this a lot of just working a 9 to 5, and that's what I don't want to do. I want to give people a reason outside of like the weight room of why to come. And I think that's like what I've been trying to do better at this year.
Yeah. And I actually think that's kind of a segue into something I want to talk about during this is like we're at a D3 level where people have a lot of different priorities. I'll speak for myself. Like throughout the years, baseball has become less of a priority, and I still love the sport, but I can't give as much time into that as other things that I care about more. And so like being a strength coach in this setting where you have athletes who care more about school or care a lot about their sport and they're just kind of here to play that, like how do you balance those different levels of like attention to working out and to skill specific training and everything there?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're kind of like talking about it on the way here. I think it starts with like being honest not only with yourself but with your teammates. Like I think it's way better if you're going to be honest with your teammates of like, hey, like this might not be my number one priority, but when it comes to like the organized time, like I'm going to put forth effort. I think that's the most important thing. Like then it's up to you if you want to like do all the extra stuff, you know. But like starting off Division III, it's like, you know, old strength coach Chris Rice. Chris, hopefully you're watching this someday. But Chris would always tell me D3 is the division of misfits, which is like so true. Like you have people who are extremely talented in their sport and like not very physical. You got people who are like very physical and not very talented at their sport, and then you got people who are like in the middle. There's like D1, like you have it, but you have it in a different essence. Like you have some freaks at the D1 level. So like division of misfits, you kind of got to deal with like a little bit of everything, which is cool in its way because, again, like it's kind of just like life. Like there's not, you know, you have your ups and downs in certain things, and it's about like balancing it. But man, where am I going with this? But basically, like, how do you deal with that? It starts with being honest, and then like again, like the workout, like your hour is. I think it's like crucial, like to devote your time to like fulfilling that hour of what you need to do. You know, like I've gotten less of like I'm gonna follow the people who like squat the most and bench the most because like that's what anyone wants to do. You know, they want to follow the good people. Like in the sport of baseball, like you see like the coaches, you know, sometimes like get a hold of the guys who are just really good at the sport. But for me, it's like I want to get a hold of the people who put forth effort, even if they're like not strong, fast, or powerful. You know, I want to influence the people who care rather than the people who can like lift the heavy weight or sprint the most. Because at the end of the day, like sometimes you can be really good at those things, and then it's like you don't realize you're not good at it until later. Like I could be a really good sprinter now, but if I don't keep sprinting, like as I evolve in levels per se, like say I become an Olympic sprint athlete, like if I just keep doing the same thing I'm doing and not like trying to get better, is at some point I'm going to fall behind. You've probably seen it too, like in high school to college, like those dudes who are early bloomers, you know, yeah. Like they don't get it until it's way later that they actually need to try, you know. So that's why I think effort is a big thing, especially even if it's not. And like we've had teammates who, you know, baseball's not their number one priority, and they still like devote a lot of attention to like building a good team culture, you know, like we had Connor Lemma, who was a quadruple major, you know, but like that dude showed up to practice and he put his all in practice, and he showed up in the weight room and he always lifted hard. Like that's the important stuff that I see. Like those are the people that are like I'll go with you, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think a lot of times in our experience here, like those guys aren't always like the best at the sport, which right. can kind of suck. But I think it's important to still like give those guys a time of day because there's a lot of development that can happen, and people can make like really big jumps in just a span of a year. And so I think like not leaving those guys in the dust just because they don't come in with that physical attribute, you can still develop that over time. And as long as like they care about it and you give them something to care about and work with them, then you know they can go far as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Slipped my mind what I was going to ask.
I'll just follow up what you were saying. Like, yeah, I think beginner athletes like get rewarded the most out of that because like, especially people who have never had strength and conditioning or just like sports performance or any type of like just have been under that stimulus before, they get the most benefit because they don't know any better. Like they literally have done nothing. So it's like, this is something new that is here to improve my performance. And like they see those instantaneous gains because they literally have never like been under a barbell before.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's players where I literally see it. It's like I go out and I watch their sport and it's like, holy crap, like it looks like a different person. You know, but then there's people who come from strength coaches that they may like more, and they come here and it's like, well, this is how I did it, so this should be the right way, and this new college coach doesn't know what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that's important. I think people early in their careers have success doing, a certain set of workouts and a certain set of drills, and then you come to the college setting, or even you just get a new coach and you think you have to do those things to keep having success. But I mean, as one thing we've been learning about, like variability is king. And you've built that really good base doing what you've been doing for years. And now you're probably lacking in certain areas. And so getting variability in your exercises, and now we're building up, the explosive side of things when you had a really good strength benchmark, or maybe you've been doing a lot of, you have good mobility and your body moves well, but you really just can't handle the forces of your sport well. Like, let's start doing simple things and like building that capacity back up and create like a whole athlete instead of like a bunch of bits and pieces of athletic capabilities and then like throwing it out on the field and seeing what happens.
Right. And I was talking to Zach Losak, our head strength and conditioning coach now. We're talking about just how, our switch from last year to this year, and how like we utilize the field. Like at the end of the day, like the field is where we perform. I like reading Zach Dakin's book on basically just like a general philosophy, or his philosophy on building like physical abilities with novice athletes. He kind of talks about how like we need to set the base for them, and like at the end of the day, you don't have a barbell on the field. That's not saying like barbells, don't get you strong, because they do. If you think I'm an anti-barbell person or like anti-strength, I'm not. But like at the end of the day, like you have your body and you have to move and manipulate it on the field. And like that's something that's really important, because it just shows that like the strength benchmarks aren't going to get you to where you want in your sport. And that's like something that I don't know, I take like very seriously, because I found that out the hard way of doing it myself, And that's something that like when people say, what do you wish you'd change? Like I wouldn't change anything, because it's like made me the person I am, and it's like giving me the insight. I talk about it all the time. Like I used to just be like a CrossFit junkie. And it was like, all right, but what CrossFit junkie throws 90? What CrossFit junkie throws 80? You know what I mean? So it's like, just because you are working hard doesn't mean you are getting better at what you need to,
Yeah. I kind of want to jump back a little bit to what you were saying, like doing stuff and hitting benchmarks in the weight room doesn't like guarantee performance on the field. I kind of want to throw my like rehab brain into that. I think you see a lot of people that like program in rehab settings, and it's all about just hitting like little milestones in the weight room, but they never really like take into consideration what the sport is, Like, sure, it's a big win if after, shoulder surgery, I can lift a 5-pound dumbbell overhead, but we got to start progressing to throw a baseball at 80, 90 miles per hour overhead.
Yeah.
And so that 5-pound increment is like, it's a great start, but it can't be like the end all be all, like, okay, we hit this benchmark, now let's just start rolling them out. Like it has to be, all right, now they're lifting 30 pounds overhead, or whatever that metric is that equates to what their sport equals.
Yeah, it's like it's an art and a science. We can't get lost in the numbers. I think we talk about it a lot, but like, there's an art to getting an athlete better, and some of those things you can't really measure. You just have to throw constraints out and hope they work. I know like over the summer we're talking about Dylan's ACL protocol rehab, where it's like we can get strong and jump and sprint and everything, but at the end of the day, like there is a neuromuscular component. There's a brain like muscle component that we might be missing, as in like something as simple as, okay, the cone drills, like we're reacting to a cone for ACL rehab, but like at the end of the day, they're reacting to their environment. They're reacting to people, like actual moving things, Like you don't react to cones. They're just obstacles there. Like you react to people, because at the end of the day, like you make moves, for example, in soccer based off of people. right? And I think we get lost in the ladder drills and cone drills, and it's like we forgot that we're playing a sport. We're not playing against cones and ladders, you know. So I don't know if you wanted to add more on that.
No, I agree 100% with that. I think it's, once again, very ingrained in that we're going to hit this benchmark and like, oh, cones are, you know, a reactive, fast-paced, you know, like this is the sport. Like if we can do this drill well, we can play the sport well. But I mean, that's, in no world is that true. We have to get them ready beyond just the cones, which means throwing more constraints at them or weaning them slowly back into sport, you know, maybe give them like a soccer ball through those cones and, you know, allow them to move and adjust to that ball. And then also as a gym specialist or a rehab specialist, like know what it takes for your athlete to do something. Like you should also know how to do the workouts that you're throwing at them. And so you can like understand really what it takes because, you know, maybe doing that drill with them and being a quote unquote defender against them can be a nice way to kind of ramp back up into the sport. And like, you know, if I'm rehabbing a soccer player, like I don't necessarily need to know how to play soccer, but I can at least stand there and like flail my legs around and try to steal the ball. And, you know, it's more of a realistic look. I think a lot of people like to sit down and just throw workouts at people. But I implore to like get up and at least try stuff and experiment.
I think I was watching this mic'd up video. It's on YouTube with the University of Hawaii strength coach. He programs basketball, and he talks about how he's always 2 weeks ahead of what they're doing in their strength program. So he knows how they're feeling. Like he knows how much soreness they're going through, like how many sets and reps to like program these people. Because at the end of the day, like, again, it's an art and a science. You could know the science and know like, you know, CSCS 4 to 6 reps and 3 to 5 sets, but it's like, how are they feeling? You know, what's the art of it? Like, what's the subjective feedback from the people? And like, you can only get that if you actually do it. It's like, you know, before I went into Driveline this summer, I was so ingrained on like, what are the numbers and like, how long is it going to take, rather than just like, how are they going to feel? If that makes sense. And I think it's cool to see like, or maybe I'm going to go on the other side of what I was going to say. It hurts me when I see like physical therapists and strength coaches who like don't even work out themselves. It's like, how are you going to tell other people what to do when you're not even like doing it yourself? Or put athletic trainers in that bucket too. Because like, how, like, you know what I mean? Like you're programming them stuff that you don't even know what they're feeling, let alone like, don't even let me start on like functional anatomy, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, we're speaking the same language here. That's kind of what I was getting at. It's like you can have an idea of, you know, oh, my, you know, overhead raise is working the, you know, posterior side of my delts. But like, is it? Like, do the workout and like really feel it. And, you know, maybe there's a better way to do it. And maybe there's a way where you can add some more chaos in, or you can add, you know, like a rapid eccentric portion to it. And then, yeah, just putting yourself in the athlete's shoes, I think, is important. We all can't be the best athlete ever, but we can train athletically to help develop other people athletically. And hopefully they can exceed our capacity of athleticism if we train them well.
Yeah, I think like a good example is, if you want to look at Max Schmarza on, I know I'm butchering his last name, Max Schwarzma or something, on Instagram, and he was a D3 basketball player. He was mediocre, but like the dude is like a legit like 35-year-old basketball player who trains guys, and like his whole thing is just like how he trains with his athletes. Like that's, we listen to a podcast with him, like he is in his athlete's life. Like he makes them breakfast, like they are playing games together, like he's a defender for them in basketball, like he's an offensive guy for them in basketball. Like he really puts himself in their shoes. And now like the dude like literally went on Twitter and like said, at anybody, like come face me, like I'm 35 and I bet none of you will come beat me. Like no strength coach, sorry, will come beat me. I don't think anyone has responded. I really want to see that. But like that's just an example of like this dude is willing to like get better even though he's not actually playing basketball. Like this dude wants to be like you can make the argument for like that's how that's a way to progress in life. Like we have a professor, like she talks about how she tries to learn a new skill every year. Like that importantly like affects her in a positive way. You know, learning something new and pushing yourself to a new limit. You know, because like going back to variability, like that is variability. Like only running marathons and only doing powerlifting, like that's not variability. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe you should go challenge him. I mean, you're a pretty god-awful basketball player,
Yeah,
but
I'm
maybe
pretty
you
bad.
can toss one up and get lucky.
I'm just glad I haven't gotten injured playing basketball. It's like if you threw a basketball at me, I'd probably like jam. Like that's the biggest thing I hated about basketball, dude. Was just like jamming my fingers, and then I just get like daytime nightmares of like when I first played basketball and they kept saying ballerina like for the layup, and I could not do it. Like people, I don't know. He'd call me like a name instead of like doing, but he'd always say like ballerina. So or he'd say do ballerina, and then I like somehow do it wrong. And like everyone's like looking at me, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's just like implanted in my brain.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, I agree with you, and I think we can actually expand this into like playing multiple sports as an athlete. Like I've been trying to wean off this word because I used it way too much at the end of the summer. But like building like robustness, you know. Sure, I can become a pretty good baseball player playing baseball every single day, but there's a lot of things that happens in basketball that correlate to baseball, but basketball hammers a lot more. Same with football, soccer, and I think a lot of people at a young age, and I was one of them, and I think it's one of my biggest regrets. Once again, it's like, would I do it differently if I went back or could go back? Like maybe not, because it's made me who I am. But just getting that mentality of like, I need to train my sport year round to get good at my sport, when really it's like develop general athleticism first. A lot of people like focus on the skill specific before they have like a good benchmark. And I think, if you can learn how to jump and accept force in basketball, and you can learn how to stay stacked over yourself while taking hits from other people in football, or, move your feet like very rhythmically in soccer to get around a defender, like that's going to help you in baseball. There's a lot of those aspects come into play when you're an infielder and you're moving your feet to turn a double play ball. It's like, man, I get crossed up sometimes, and I think like soccer player might be able to do this better than me, or a basketball defender, they know how to shuffle and they know how to get their feet under them. And I just think it's kind of a direction we need to head in the sports world, where like playing multiple sports is a good thing, and it doesn't necessarily increase your risk for injury. You might get injured playing another sport, sure, but like that could happen anywhere.
Right.
Realistically, it's going to make you stronger in the long run, because your body is going to be able to handle more forces acting upon it.
Yeah, and it like it's not only about force in that perspective. It's also just like about movement options. Like a driveline, like you'd think like driveline being like a data research place, like everything would be very specific to baseball. You would actually like think that. You'd think like the warm-ups are like very it's like no. It's like the total opposite in regards to like specific things. Like our warm-ups, like we had to have a different warm-up every day. Like we didn't have the same generic like jog, world's greatest like toe touch skits and stuff like that. It's like we wanted variability of movement, and we did it because we had a whole bunch of athletes who didn't play multiple sports, who didn't have variable movement options. And you could see that, like, again, going back to like the art of sports, it's like we sometimes don't know why something looks good. It just like visually looks appealing, especially like in basketball. Like they might not be the fastest or like the most explosive, but like there's like a certain art to it and like a flow. I'm getting at is just like, we do like football receiving routes, we do basketball, we do handstands, we do rock climbing, like put our bodies in weird positions, just because like to get to used to like the variability of movement. Because like sometimes parents don't know any better, but we're just put into a bucket of you're gonna play baseball all year, and that somehow is gonna like get you better. And like from like an outside, that looks like how it should work. But I always say like there's a lot of complexity and simplicity, and like that's why people say like, what am I looking for? Not ballerinaing. What's the gymnastics? What the hell? Gymnastics is such a good. This could be a whole nother podcast. Like we could go in deep. Why gymnastics is so good is because like you're having to take so many inputs of your body in space, input out one specific output. Like there's so many like different things that your body has to like contortion, relax, and stiffen up in different positions, and you have to like put an output to that specific thing. And I remember like I asked Bryce, I was like, if you had a child, what was like the 3 sports you'd put your child in? He said gymnastics, basketball, and baseball. Because like at the end of the day, like some sports, follow very specific physical skills like hand-eye coordination, change of direction, speed, acceleration. It's like, especially baseball pitchers at driveline, it's like they're treated because they are a pitcher that they don't need movement options, speed, skill, change of direction, or any of that. And it's like, to put it in a very simplistic way, you will never have the same mound. Like when you go to travel and like you need to learn how to contortion and manipulate your body in different variable positions. And only just one example is just like a different size mound.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. Once again, like going back to that gymnastics, it's like, I think people might hear that and be like, like really, like, is that the sport you do? It's like, if you can tell where every limb on your body is while you are upside down flying through the air, like while you're going up for a layup or, you're laying out for a ball in the hole, like you're going to know where your body is, and that can only like benefit you. Just going something we've seen on social media a lot, like the Trey Turner slide. Mm-hmm. Like that dude is smooth as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can get that way from just like sliding over and over again. But like generally that just comes from like knowing where your body is in space. Mm-hmm. And that comes from training in a lot of different settings where your body's in different positions. Because if all you do is just slide over and over to try to look like Trey Turner, it's like you're just going to push yourself into this valley of how you do that movement and how you slide. And you're going to understand a lot about your body in that very specific situation. But now you throw yourself into a game and there's a tag coming in and you're trying to lean over to the side to avoid the tag. And it's like, now you're in a completely different position. It's like, does your body know that position? Right. Probably not, but if you have played soccer instead of sliding a million times into second base, like maybe you go for a slide tackle and, you're adjusting to the ball and, you know where your body is now. It's just variability. I think it's a world that we live in where we just want to repeat something over and over to get better at it. But I think, because it looks pleasing from the outside, mm-hmm. but that mixed with variabilities of positions and constraints is the key, I think.
Yeah, I think like variability comes in all different sorts of fashions. I don't think it's like only sports skill specific. Like we use it in the weight room, and I think it should be used more in the weight room. Of like, Bryce like exposed me to this thing of like variability of like intensities with like jumps. Like why is everything, like say you have 3 sets of 5 of jumps, like why should everything be at 70%? Why not like 60, 70, 80? Because like this is something I want to look into more. And we're talking about like schema theory right now in motor learning. And there's like, you have to have like relative force, relative time, order sequence. And to me it's like, do you learn how to apply force differently? And can you like train that based off of like something like trap bar deadlift jumps? Where it's like, maybe you go like 60, 70, 60, and you have like a better motor learning pattern of how to apply force in sport in variable aspects. And like, that sounds like very like kind of stupid at hand, but I think it kind of makes sense because at the end of the day, like talking about maneuvering your body on the field, you have to know the relative force to put like, I love using soccer for an example. Like someone's coming to me and like I need to make like small, minute steps to stay on defense. That's a relative force that's way more minute. But if I were to like apply force like way more, I jolt myself and like, it spin move me. If I apply too much force in a small force situation, it's like I might just like get my ass handed to me. If that makes sense.
No, I get what you're saying. It's actually, I think that's really interesting. It's something I haven't really thought about, but I think there is probably a lot of benefit to just not doing everything at 100%, you know?
Right.
Um, that's very interesting.
Yeah, but we're talking about like going back to like maneuvering your body in space. Like I made a post about this about like the motion capture system. I love. Like shout out Muscle Doc Jordan Shallow. Like he is like the most. We've seen this like or at least for me, the best people at like explaining things like use a very like they use examples and they use like very visual like they use very visual aspects to get their point across, and that like fits with me the most. He talks about like how we have our own internal motion capture of like like when you see people shooting for like Planet of the Apes, like they're not actual monkeys for all like for people who think they might be monkeys. Like it's someone, you know, in a suit full of motion capture things because the computer needs to know where like the actor's body is in space.
You're telling me Caesar didn't actually talk?
Caesar didn't actually talk. Maybe one of like, yeah, I don't know. Then they have markers on them, right? The computer knows where Caesar is in space, you know, but the thing is our body has that exact same thing, like our cerebellum and just like our brain in general. Like the better your body can know where it is in space, then like the better you'll be able to maneuver your body in space on the field. Because like if you think about it, like you close your eyes or you like try to walk in the dark at night and you're like this, right? Because like you kind of you've lost an aspect of like where your body is in space, and like our vision is the only thing connected to all lobes of our brain. That's like that should like shock you because our visual aspect has so much influence on other things we do. Like you close your eyes and it's like where's like my hand, you know, kind of thing. So I think it just goes to show like we can train that stuff first of all, you know. We train it in like literally just learning new motor, like going back to just like learning different sports. You start to understand how you can torque your body through space, you know, gymnastics, like rolling, tumbling, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a big one we didn't even touch on is just like rolling around on the ground, like doing stuff on the ground, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's not necessarily a skill-specific thing, but it can really help you a lot. We've been doing a lot of rolling lately, and I haven't really done a lot of it before outside of like 6 years old martial arts, and it's like a big like learning curve. Like I'm really bad at rolling, but you know, I think it's a big indicator of your coordination and something I want to get better at for sure.
Yeah, I wish like there's more. I personally haven't looked into like the science of it, but you know, it's not only about rolling. Like there's multiple benefits. There's a lot of like spine mobility you can get from it. Like you're putting your spine in a flex position, and just like talking about like I think it's cerebellum, but just like the fluid in your ears tells you where your body is in space. That's a fact. I'm not like guessing. Like that's an actual thing. Like you have fluid in your ears, and like the better you can control that, right? The less dizzy you'll be. The less dizzy you'll be in a sport, like the better you can, you know, come back and do something. Like you see it happen in baseball. Like someone, you know, flies out into foul territory, they run down the first baseline, and you know they always walk back to make sure that like they're not dizzy. So when they go back to the plate, you know, it doesn't look like this. It's like the faster you can do that and like stop yourself from being dizzy, then like the better you can do anything. You know, something as simple as like a diving play or like falling in basketball when you get pushed over, or like making a slide tackle in soccer. It's like you have some sort of dizziness that happens because that fluid's being moved around, but the better you can control it, and there's like an adaptation to that, and like any advantage you have in your opponent in that aspect is important. And like it's not like it takes a lot of time to do. Like this isn't stuff that you have to like specifically train. You know, you don't have to go to your trainer and be like, I'm not benching today, I'm gonna go do rolls. You know, it's like it doesn't like you don't have to do that. It could be like a recovery day thing, or it should be like a quick warm up. You know, you can microdose this stuff. I think people think you have to do everything, and I did this early on. You have to do everything to its fullest and greatest intent, and it's like you don't. Like you can microdose these things in your program.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we could talk about this for a long time, and hopefully we'll talk about it more in the future. But we're running out of time here. So, any last comments you want to give?
Nah. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. I think it'd be really cool to have some guest people talk to us.
I agree. This is episode 1. This is kind of the test here, just talking about ourselves and our experience, but we want to expand to a lot more avenues. Hopefully have some cool guests on and just have some fun. So, all right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.